So in this section, I'm going to briefly go over this introduction to industry. This is again the core class, uh, Eve University's industry core class. And again, these slides are very good, so I'd recommend looking them over. If you haven't. I just kind of want to talk to just the most basic things, so we can kind of get it moving along. Um, and I'm gonna kind of talk about blueprints and different types of originals versus copies. I think is kind of the two big things. Okay, so I'm back on the kind of if you had this open in the market, and for those of you kind of new to this EVUI, like 90% of the things are either like some little decoration thing next to it, or you right click something. So that's sort of like how you would find something that's related to something. So here, you click on the little eye for information, and then I click on this industry tab, and then you can see, oh, okay, well, this is how you might build this item. The ship view is a little bit different now; it looks nicer, but um, so you would have this thing, and then again, you could right click or show info. There was a little eye there that probably could have worked too. So this is the blueprint, the original blueprint for a Vexor, and this is how in the section before I talked in trade, you could quickly see by default how much what are the inputs to your Vexor, and how long it takes to build if you were to build it, and what skill you need to build. Um, it's over here. Okay, so I'm jumping back to the slide deck, and these blueprints have sort of two main. These are research upgrades to a blueprint. There's two main types, or two. One is material efficiency (ME), and the other one's time efficiency. Um, the ME goes up to 10%, so it's like 1% per like level up to level 10. The TE is it's up to 20%. It's 2% per level up to 20, and it reduces TE reduces time. So all things equal, I mean, ME tends to be favored, right? Because less inputs essentially means less cost, right? If you can get 10% off, it tends to be 10% cheaper. With this one nuance in that if the input count is like super low, like you only need one item for the build, I guess, then you can't get 10% off of a single item. So like the amount that it would reduce is rounded down. So like in that case, if I have 10% off, but it only costs one thing, I can't pay zero point 0.9 of the thing. I still gotta pay the one input. So kind of the it's a nuance, but it reduces after it gets multiplied by your run count. So in cases where the input has a low like number of inputs, you you kind of want to do multiple runs, right? Because that way, like if it needed only one item, if you do 10 runs, then now, hey, it needs 10 items. And so now you can get 10% off of 10 and save the one item. So, um, you, I guess the takeaway is you sometimes you can't fully realize the reduction, right? Because it rounds your reduction away. It's kind of a risk. Each level, it costs more per, you got to pay the research. And also it takes a lot more time to research it. So, um, kind of don't want to, each tick is the same value, right? It's like 1%, or is it maybe it's 2%, right? Depending on MATE. But it's like diminishing returns, so to speak, right? You get a lot of value for training it to like 6, and it's pretty cheap, pretty fast. But then getting from 6 to 8 is like, takes a lot more time and money. And then to get from 8 to 10, it's like a ridiculous amount of money for the last 2%. So, um, when I started, I just kind of got either to 6 or 8. I didn't bother going all the way to 10. Again, if you want to be like super optimized, when you get to the high volume case, then yeah, you definitely need 10. But if you know, um, you can copy an original BPO, original blueprint, and create a copy. It's subtle, but the copies have a very lighter background than the original, so you can kind of visually see. And again, there's in the text it says like original, so there's no limit to number of runs. When you make a copy, you have to say how many runs it's good for. So the copies are they can only do a limited number of runs. Um, this is useful for I guess a pair of reasons. starting out, it's I used it for one reason. It was I would buy a Blueprint original. I would quickly train it or research it to like maybe five or something, maybe six, and then I would copy it a few times, and then turn around and put it back in the research queue to get maybe to eight. Because when it's in research, it's like being used by like the researcher thing. So like you can't use it to build. So that'll be one reason where you might want to make a few copies first. I mean, it's not obviously it copies the current MENTE, so it wouldn't be like the best yet, but it allows you to make stuff. If it takes a week to get from six to eight, in that week, you don't want to just be twiddling your thumbs. So if you had a few copies, you could actually like, um, you know, do stuff. The second main reason that things are copied is for invention, which is a little bit beyond the scope of this. But to get T2 blueprints, you'd have to invent on a T1 copy. So that's why you would another reason that copying would exist. A question always comes up, kind of how to get these blueprints. Okay, so the originals, unresearched originals, they're seeded by NPCs. So you can tell they're NPCs because they're the only ones that can make this long of an expiry. Human players are 90 days is the max. So when you see these like super high in the 300s, these are NPCs selling these items. Um, and so that's one way. Um, and kind of just so we kind of hit this point home. If you wanted to build a Vexor, and you wanted to go this blueprint original route, I mean, you'd have to commit a decent amount of ISK just to get this blueprint. I mean, 83 mil. I mean, it's not nothing, right, to get this blueprint. The other way that it's around, maybe I'll get back to that other view. You can buy uh, blueprints on contract. Okay, this is interesting or notable because in contracts you can buy copies, and in contracts you can buy researched originals. So, um, you know, that's another. I think going forward, you'll find that you kind of want a researched blueprint, and some of these is going to be it's kind of time prohibitive to do the research. So you might even be considering, even if you want original, you might just want to buy it already researched. I mean, you pay more obviously, but then you kind of get moving faster. The other thing that at least I do for a lot of these things that are mid-priced. I mean, I might not want to commit 100 mil, 80 mil plus research time to get started on a new thing. Um, and this is another way to guarantee that you're seeing copies. So Vexor blueprint, and you say copies, and it makes sure that everything here is a copy. Um, and so you can see here's a 5-run copy of this Vexor blueprint. And it's already maxed out in research, and it's 320,000 for 5 runs. So it's not free, but at the same time, like you're not putting in 80 mil plus just to get this blueprint so you can start building a Vexor or whatever. So this is a very it's a way to be able to get in and start building things faster. And I mean, I still do this today. If it's a pretty big item, and you build an Orca or something, like I don't have like whatever 1.5 2 bill just to buy the blueprint or something. So you're gonna look for a blueprint copy, and then you can build from there. I've run the math, and it's like even for this Vexor, you'd have to build like 2,000 Vexors before the cost of these copies start to surpass the cost of that original. And of course, yeah, the counterpoint is okay, you could sell the original back later, blah blah blah. But the point being is like your return on investment is like that window. It's super long. It will take a really long time to make it where it was like not feasible to buy copies. And that doesn't count the time that you're not doing it, right? Like if you have to save up whatever 100 mil, you're not building Vexors or your product. You're not building your product. You're not selling, right? So um, these copies are a great way to kind of get started building, um, and don't feel like you're getting ripped off. I mean, kind of get over that. um, One thing to note here is like, let me hover over this description part. Um, it's like whatever the user wants to type. So I mean, they're pretty honest here. 5 runs, 1020, okay, but they could write anything there. So you want to look at the bottom of this, the pop-up where it actually has copy 5 runs and it shows you 1020. Like so, you can see that it's like that's what it really is. The description is just text that the any text that the poster can put. So I mean, just be careful. I mean, not most people are pretty fair, honest for these copies, but there are obviously scammers out there, so just kind of be careful. Okay, I wanted to just talk really quickly about the industry, the UI. So Alt S is going to be your best friend. It's the industry tab thing. By default, it kind of shows you the blueprints that are in your current system. I changed this to be item hanger, so that I think sometimes it shows things that are like in your cargo hold, and it's dangerous because you can't really build from your cargo hold. The blueprints have to be in the item hanger, so I just sort of buy item hanger, so I'm not like confused or whatever. This shows like the coloring is like that you don't have these mats yet, so they'll turn blue if you had them. This top one is where it's gonna look for those inputs, input material location. Uh, This, however, is nice. This is the required skills. So like this is kind of an alt character that hasn't really built stuff yet. So it would show you what you would need to build. So you would know what you had to research to build this thing that's here. Um, and this is the cost of doing the job. So for industry, there's a cost to build. Like you're paying the facility, I guess, or whatever to build. And there's a few kind of major things. The first one being that system cost index, and that has to do with how many other builders, how busy is the system for builders, and the game wants kind of us to spread out and not all build at one place. So they're incentivizing people to maybe move out a little bit. So if you move the further out you go off like the beaten path, then the system cost index tends to go down because there's less builders out there. Um, the tax, yeah, it's set either by the facility. So if it's player owned, they can set it. If it's the NPCs, I think at this 0.25 is pretty standard for manufacturing. Um, and then there's that dumb surcharge, SEC tax that is unescapable. Anyway, just so you have an idea of how much this thing it costs to build. So not only do you provide the materials, here, you provide the blueprint, right? Somehow you have the skills to build, and then you have to actually pay. Um, and yep. Let's see. Well, I can't. Yeah, I can't build this yet. I don't have the skill, but or the materials. But oh, this is the output. So where it goes after it's built, you click complete, it'll go here. So especially if you start using containers to organize your stuff, just be careful. I mean, many times I've like built something, but they sent it to like the place that holds my blueprints. It's like a lot of um, can get you can get confused. You can confuse yourself here. So just maybe double check that the item when you is going to the place that kind of you think it's going to. Um, these other tabs are valuable. This kind of helps tell you what's around you and how expensive it is. So, um, well, I have it set to ME, but let's say it's manufacturing. This red bar is that system index, so it has a visual of kind of what the cost is in that little area. Um, and if it's lit up, it means the stationer system does it. Um, and well, you can sort by jumps, for example. And it shows you what's around you. Facilities that offer the different services, whether it be manufacturing, the research, copying, or invention.